It was just another ordinary day for Jasmine Taylor. She was balancing trays, hustling through the busy lunch rush at the Silver Spoon, a local diner in downtown California. She had worked here for nearly 3 years, serving regulars, trying to make ends meet for herself and her 6-year-old daughter, Amara. Life was a daily grind. Between shifts, picking up extra hours, and trying to keep up with bills, Jasmine felt like she was constantly on the edge of exhaustion. She had dreams, big ones, but they always felt out of reach. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? On this particular afternoon, the diner was busier than usual. The clatter of plates and the hum of conversations filled the air. Jasmine moved between tables, her mind constantly ticking with thoughts of how she could improve her situation. She wasn't complaining, though. This was her life, and she had made peace with it. Or so she thought. Then, something happened that would change everything. As she walked past a table near the corner, she paused, noticing a man who looked vaguely familiar, though she couldn't quite place where she'd seen him before. He was sitting alone, dressed in a simple black jacket, his face partially obscured by a pair of dark sunglasses. His calm, collected demeanor was different from most customers, who were distracted by their phones or busy talking. This man, however, seemed lost in thought, his eyes scanning the menu with a kind of quiet intensity. Jasmine approached him with her usual professional smile, ready to ask if he needed anything. But as soon as she got closer, something about the man struck her. It was his presence, like he wasn't just any ordinary person. There was something magnetic about him. She took a deep breath, trying to brush off the feeling. "Hi, sir. Welcome to the Silver Spoon. What can I get you today?" she asked, her voice polite but somewhat distracted, trying to focus on the task at hand. The man looked up, his eyes locking with hers. There was a spark of recognition, but Jasmine couldn't place it. He smiled warmly, his voice low but friendly. "I'll have the steak and eggs, please, and some black coffee. Strong." "Of course," she replied, quickly scribbling it down on her notepad. "Anything else I can get you?" He paused for a moment, then shook his head. "No, that will do for now." Jasmine turned to leave, but something in her gut told her to linger. She wasn't sure what it was, maybe the curiosity that always seemed to follow her in this line of work. As she walked back toward the kitchen, she stole another glance at the man. There was a subtle calm about him, but also something else, something she couldn't quite figure out. It wasn't until a few minutes later, when she overheard one of the other waitresses talking, that Jasmine's sense of recognition finally clicked into place. "Did you hear? Elon Musk is eating at the diner today," the waitress said, excitedly whispering to a coworker. Jasmine froze in her tracks. Elon Musk? She couldn't believe it. The billionaire entrepreneur, the founder of SpaceX and Tesla, was sitting right there in her section, just a few feet away. Jasmine felt a flush of surprise, followed by a wave of disbelief. She had heard of him, of course, like everyone else, but she never imagined someone like that would walk into her humble diner. Why is he here? She thought to herself. What's he doing in a place like this? Her heart raced as she grabbed the plate of steak and eggs from the kitchen and made her way back to his table. She tried to maintain her composure, but the reality of the situation felt surreal. The man who had changed the world with his vision was now sitting across from her, a mere waitress in a local diner. As she set the plate down in front of him, their eyes met once again, and this time there was no mistaking it. He was Elon Musk. She had served him without even realizing it. He smiled politely, his eyes gleaming with a quiet confidence, and muttered a soft, "Thank you." Jasmine managed a nod and a tight smile, trying to ignore the whirlwind of thoughts spinning in her head. She couldn't help but feel nervous, like there was some invisible pressure to be more, do more, just because of who he was. She took a step back, eager to retreat to her station. But as she walked away, something unexpected happened. Elon called out to her. "Excuse me, miss. Could I have another coffee, please?" Jasmine paused. She turned around and found him watching her with an earnest expression. "Sure thing," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. As she walked to the coffee machine, her mind raced. Elon Musk. He's sitting there in my section. What does this mean? She had seen rich, powerful people before, but never anyone who had such an influence on the world. Elon Musk was a person she only saw in the media, someone whose life seemed so far removed from hers. And yet, here he was, just another man having lunch at her diner. She made him another coffee, trying to steady her nerves. But as she approached his table, something strange happened. Elon looked up from his meal, his face softened with a faint smile, and he slid a small, folded piece of paper across the table toward her. Jasmine blinked, confused, but she took the paper. He didn't say a word, just nodded slightly as if encouraging her to open it later. Jasmine stood frozen for a moment, staring at the note in her hand. What could this possibly mean? "Thank you," Elon said again, this time more quietly. "I appreciate the service." Jasmine nodded, barely able to muster a response. She turned away and walked back to the kitchen, the piece of paper burning a hole in her hand. The rest of her shift passed in a blur. Her mind kept drifting back to that note. She had no idea what was written on it, but something told her it was important. And in that moment, she couldn't shake the feeling that this was the beginning of something that would change her life forever. Jasmine Taylor was no stranger to hard work. Born and raised in the heart of California, she had always been the kind of person who believed in pulling herself up by her bootstraps. Her mother, a woman who worked 2 jobs to keep food on the table, had instilled in her the values of perseverance and independence. Jasmine had admired her mother's strength, but as she grew older, she realized how much her mother's sacrifices weighed on her own spirit. At 16, Jasmine had made a decision that would shape the rest of her life. She was going to leave high school and work full-time to help her mother make ends meet. Education, while important, seemed less critical when her family was struggling to stay afloat. Her mom had encouraged her to stay in school, but Jasmine was determined. She had dreams, sure, but they seemed like distant stars that could never be reached. Life moved on, and Jasmine found herself becoming a young mother at the age of 21. Her daughter, Amara, was a bright light in Jasmine's life, a source of joy and motivation, but also an enormous responsibility. While her friends were out building careers, Jasmine was juggling work at the Silver Spoon and caring for her little girl. Every day, she reminded herself that her dreams didn't have to die with her circumstances. They just needed to be put on hold for a while. But as the years passed, those dreams faded further and further into the background. She had become accustomed to the routine. Wake up early, head to work, come home late, make dinner, tuck Amara into bed, and then start all over again the next day. The life of a waitress at a diner wasn't glamorous, but it was steady, and sometimes steady was enough. Or at least, that's what she told herself. However, there was a part of Jasmine that yearned for more. A part of her that still wondered what life would be like if she didn't have to worry about bills every month. If she didn't have to clock in at the diner every day just to pay rent. The thought of escape was always at the back of her mind, like a song she couldn't quite remember the words to. Her dreams weren't grand. She didn't fantasize about fame or fortune, but she had always wanted a chance to do something more with her life, something that felt meaningful. She often thought about going back to school or pursuing a career in design, something creative, something that made her feel alive. But with Amara growing up so fast and the mounting pressure of providing for her, Jasmine had put those dreams on a shelf, telling herself there would be time later. After all, when you're a single mom working 2 jobs, there's no time for anything else. Jasmine's relationships, too, had been a source of disappointment. The father of her child, a man she had once loved deeply, had disappeared shortly after Amara was born. He didn't have the strength or commitment to be a father, and Jasmine had never heard from him again. She had learned to live without him, but part of her still felt the sting of abandonment, the loneliness of raising a child on her own. Her only solace came from Amara. The little girl was her rock. Every night, as she kissed her daughter goodnight, Jasmine found herself whispering a silent promise. "I will give you the life I never had." And though Jasmine had given up much of her own happiness for her daughter, she would never trade it for anything in the world. But despite all of this, Jasmine never stopped dreaming of something more. A life beyond the confines of the diner, beyond the endless cycle of work and struggle. And it was during one of those fleeting moments of daydreaming, as she wiped down the counter and served another customer, that her life would change forever. She didn't know it yet, but the man sitting at the corner booth of the Silver Spoon, Elon Musk, was about to become part of that dream. And it all started with a simple note. The next few days passed without much change for Jasmine. She went to work, cared for Amara, and tried to hold on to the fragile threads of hope that had started to form after that strange encounter with Elon Musk. But the note he had given her kept gnawing at her. She had yet to open it, unsure of what she would find inside. It felt like one of those moments in life when something small could be the catalyst for something huge. But then again, maybe it was just a kind gesture from a man who didn't know her at all. But Jasmine couldn't ignore the feelings that came with the note. It wasn't just the words Elon had written on it, but the idea that someone like him, had noticed her. In her day-to-day routine, she often felt invisible. People came in, ate their meals, and left, rarely giving her a second thought. And even though she had learned to push those feelings of insignificance aside, she couldn't help but wonder, what if there was more for her than this life? Her mind raced as she worked, replaying the moment over and over. You have more potential than you think. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. The words echoed in her mind, giving her a strange sense of possibility. But just as quickly, doubt crept in. She wasn't some world-changing innovator. She was just a single mother, stuck in a dead-end job. What would someone like Elon Musk see in me? That night, after Amara was tucked into bed, Jasmine sat on the couch, the small piece of paper resting in her hands. She stared at it for a long moment, hesitating. What if it was just a motivational quote? A cliché? A nice gesture to make her feel better for a few minutes before she got back to reality? She had grown used to people trying to cheer her up with empty words. Finally, with a sigh, Jasmine unfolded the paper. She read the message again and again. She was looking for something that would make sense, something that would reassure her that this wasn't just another fleeting moment of false hope. But it wasn't. The words struck a chord in her heart. It wasn't just encouragement, it was an invitation. An invitation to believe in herself, to believe that she had something more to offer the world. But there was still that nagging voice in her head. How could a billionaire like Elon Musk, who had changed the world, ever care about someone like me? Jasmine tried to push those thoughts away, but the doubts lingered. She had always dreamed of doing more with her life. But how could she? She had no formal education, no connections, no clear path forward. Every time she tried to think about taking that first step, the weight of her responsibilities to Amara pulled her back. Her daughter needed her. She couldn't just abandon everything for a dream that seemed so out of reach. The next morning, Jasmine felt the heaviness of that uncertainty as she got ready for another day at the diner. As she prepared to leave the apartment, she kissed Amara goodbye, telling her she would be back soon. Amara, with her wide eyes and innocent smile, hugged her mother tightly. "I love you, Mommy," she said. "I love you too, sweetheart," Jasmine whispered back, her heart aching. She wished she could give her daughter more, wished she could be more than the woman she was right now. But she didn't know how. When Jasmine arrived at the Silver Spoon, things were as chaotic as usual. The din of voices, the clink of silverware, and the clatter of dishes all blended together as she moved through the motions. She was used to this by now, used to the constant demands, the never-ending rush to get everything done. But that morning, something was different. It felt like the weight of her unspoken dreams and the burden of her doubts were pressing down on her more than usual. She couldn't shake the feeling that she was standing on the edge of a cliff, unsure whether to leap or to retreat. What if this is the moment I've been waiting for? She wondered. What if I miss my chance because I'm too scared to try? It wasn't long before she saw him again. Elon Musk, the man who had somehow made her question everything. He was sitting at the same booth, looking much the same as he had before. Calm, collected. But this time, he wasn't just a stranger to Jasmine. This time, he was a reminder. A reminder that her life could be different, that change was possible, even if she didn't know how to make it happen. As Jasmine moved past his table, she caught his eye. He smiled, a small but sincere smile, and she couldn't help but smile back. Her heart fluttered, and for a moment, she felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. But then the rush of customers took over. Jasmine was once again consumed by the demands of her job, running around with orders, drinks, and refills. The minutes turned into hours, and she found herself lost in the rhythm of the diner. The sensation of hope faded, replaced by the familiar exhaustion that came with a long shift. But something else lingered in the back of her mind. That note, the words, and the question that had been gnawing at her for days now. What was she supposed to do with all of this? Later in the afternoon, when the diner slowed down a little, Jasmine went to the back to catch her breath. As she leaned against the wall, she closed her eyes for a moment. Her mind was spinning. Was she capable of more? Could she actually do something with her life beyond the confines of this diner? But even as she entertained the thought, she was struck by a crushing realization. She didn't know how to begin. The dream she had been holding onto for so long seemed distant, just out of reach. And as much as she wanted to believe in the possibility of something greater, the fear of failure weighed heavily on her. What if it's too late? What if I can't change my life? What if I can't do this for Amara? And yet, even with the doubts clouding her thoughts, Jasmine couldn't help but wonder. What if she could? Jasmine hadn't meant to dwell on it for so long. She was used to compartmentalizing her thoughts, pushing aside distractions to focus on the here and now. But the note Elon Musk had given her had lodged itself firmly in her mind, a constant buzz she couldn't ignore. She hadn't even had the chance to tell anyone about it, not even her best friend Lily, who had been a constant source of support over the years. But something was stirring inside Jasmine, a strange feeling that she had never quite experienced before. It was as though a door had been cracked open, just a sliver, and now she was caught in the uncomfortable space between two realities, the life she knew and the life that could be. She had worked so hard for so long, sacrificing everything for Amara, for the bills, for survival. There had never been room for anything else. And now, suddenly, the idea of a different future felt both terrifying and exhilarating at once. The note, those simple, powerful words, had ignited something inside her. It had planted the seed of possibility, and now that seed was starting to grow, pushing against the soil of her doubts. That afternoon, after the lunch rush, Jasmine found herself sitting at the small break table in the back of the diner, staring at the crumpled note in her hand. Her fingers traced the words again, as if somehow they would offer her the answers she needed. You have more potential than you think. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. The words felt both like a challenge and a promise. But what did they really mean for her? How could she take the first step into the unknown when everything about her life had been so predictable, so set in stone? As she sat there, lost in thought, Lily popped her head into the break room. Hey, Jazz, you okay? You've been quiet today, Lily remarked, her brows furrowed in concern. Lily had been Jasmine's friend for years, ever since they had both started working at the Silver Spoon. She was the one person who knew all the details of Jasmine's life, the struggles, the dreams, the disappointments. Jasmine looked up, startled by the sound of her voice, and forced a smile. Yeah, just tired. Another crazy day, you know how it is. Lily eyed her for a moment, her suspicion evident. I know how it is. But you're acting different. What's going on, really? Jasmine hesitated. She hadn't told anyone about the note. She wasn't sure why. Maybe it seemed too silly to mention, or maybe it felt too personal, like something she wasn't ready to share yet. But Lily had a way of drawing things out of her, and the weight of her own thoughts was becoming too much to bear alone. I met someone the other day, Jasmine began, her voice quiet. Elon Musk. Lily raised an eyebrow. Wait, the Elon Musk? The billionaire? The one who invented electric cars and is sending people to space? Jasmine nodded, feeling her cheeks flush. Yeah, him. I served him at the diner. He was just sitting there, like anyone else. But then he gave me a note. She pulled the crumpled paper from her pocket and handed it to Lily. Lily took the note, unfolded it carefully, and read it aloud. You have more potential than you think. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. That's deep, Lily said slowly, her eyes widening. But why are you so caught up in it? You think it's just some random motivational thing, right? A nice little pick-me-up? Jasmine shook her head, her voice filled with uncertainty. I don't know. I mean, it could be just that, but there's something about it, something about him. He's changed the world, Lily. And he's telling me I have potential. Me. She exhaled sharply, frustration creeping into her voice. It's like he's seen something in me that I don't even see in myself. Lily's expression softened. She placed a hand on Jasmine's arm, giving it a reassuring squeeze. Jazz, you've always had potential. You just need to believe in it. That note? It's not about Elon Musk seeing something in you. It's about you seeing something in yourself. Jasmine looked at her friend, her mind swirling with the enormity of it all. But how do I do that? How do I go from being just this? A waitress, a mom, stuck in a cycle I can't break? How do I change my life when I don't even know where to start? Lily smiled gently. One step at a time, Jasmine. Maybe it's time you stopped playing it safe and took a risk. I know you're scared. Hell, I'd be scared too. But you're stronger than you think. And you've already come so far. Don't let fear hold you back now. Jasmine let out a shaky breath, the weight of Lily's words settling on her shoulders. It wasn't going to be easy, she knew that. Changing her life, really changing it, would require sacrifices, effort, and maybe even failure. But for the first time in a long time, she felt like the possibility was real. As the diner began to slow down, Jasmine's mind was still racing. What did she want? What did she need to do next? She didn't have all the answers, but something had shifted inside her. The seed of hope had been planted, and now it was up to her to water it, to nurture it, and to see where it could grow. But just as she was trying to wrap her mind around the idea of change, she heard a voice, one she hadn't expected to hear again so soon. "Excuse me, miss. Could I have the check?" Jasmine looked up, startled to see Elon Musk standing at the counter, waiting for her to take his payment. Her heart skipped a beat. She hadn't anticipated seeing him again so soon, let alone in this quiet moment when she was struggling to make sense of everything he had set in motion. She cleared her throat, trying to gather her composure. Of course, right away. As she approached his table, her fingers trembling slightly, she realized that this encounter wasn't just a coincidence. It was a sign that maybe, just maybe, she was being given a chance to finally take that first step toward the life she had always dreamed of. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in a long while, Jasmine felt a flicker of hope, a spark that could light the way. Jasmine couldn't shake the feeling that the universe was somehow pushing her towards something bigger, something she couldn't yet fully understand. She had stood there for a moment, staring at Elon Musk as he handed her the check, her mind still buzzing from the conversation with Lily just moments before. But now, standing in front of this billionaire entrepreneur again, she felt a strange sense of destiny. "Is there anything else I can do for you, Mr. Musk?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady as she took his card for the bill. He glanced up from his phone, offering her a smile that was more genuine than she had expected. "No, that's all, thanks," he said with a calm, easy tone. But then, his eyes softened, and he added, "You're doing good work here. Keep it up." Jasmine blinked, taken aback by his words. She had worked so many shifts over the years, pouring coffee, serving meals, and being one face in a sea of customers and workers. She didn't expect anyone to notice her. Most people, especially in a place like this, came in, ate, and left, paying her little more than a fleeting glance. But here he was, Elon Musk, someone who had revolutionized entire industries, telling her she was doing good work. Her heart thudded in her chest as she tried to process it. Good work? It seemed so simple, but to her, it felt like more than just a compliment. It felt like validation. Before she could respond, Elon looked at her again, this time with a more serious expression. He leaned forward slightly, his voice dropping to a tone that was more personal than their earlier exchange. "I know things might feel like they're stuck right now, but remember, change isn't easy, but it's possible. Keep believing in yourself. Don't let the routine make you forget that." Jasmine's throat tightened, and for a moment, she found it hard to breathe. The same words from the note were echoing in her mind. Believe in yourself. Was he trying to tell her something more? Was this some kind of sign? Or just a passing comment from a man who likely said similar things to everyone? "Thank you," she said quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. She wasn't sure if she was thanking him for his words or for something deeper. something that felt like it was stirring inside her, like a whisper she had never heard before, but now couldn't ignore. As she walked away from his table, she felt the weight of the moment press down on her. She had been thinking about it all wrong. She had spent so many years thinking that her dreams were out of reach, that the only thing she could focus on was survival. But what if this was her chance? What if this was her second chance, a moment to change the course of her life? But change, she knew, wasn't something that just happened. It was something you had to make happen. The shift was still far from over, and there was still work to do. Jasmine moved through the diner in a haze, her mind racing as she carried out orders and refilled drinks. But somewhere deep inside, the seed of change that had been planted was starting to take root. It wasn't just about surviving anymore. It was about living. The rest of the afternoon passed in a blur. Her mind kept returning to the conversation with Elon, the note, the possibility that maybe she could do something more. But as the shift came to an end and she prepared to head home, the doubts began to creep in again. She didn't know how to take that first step. She didn't even know where to begin. Would she have the courage to follow through on her dreams? Or would she just let them fade like all the others before them? It was when she was walking out of the diner, her thoughts still tangled, that something strange happened. Elon Musk was waiting by the door, as if he had been waiting for her to finish her shift. She froze for a moment, her heart skipping a beat. "Mr. Musk," she said, surprised. "Is everything okay?" He gave her that same calm smile. "I was just wondering if you'd like to talk for a minute. I know you've got a lot going on, but I think there's more in you than you know. I'd like to help if I can." Jasmine stood there, her brain trying to process what was happening. Elon Musk, the Elon Musk, was offering to help her. He had come back to talk to her. "Why?" "I'm sorry, I don't understand," she said, her voice hesitant. "What do you mean by help?" He shrugged slightly, looking at her with a serious but compassionate gaze. "Sometimes people need a little push to get where they're meant to be. I see potential in you, Jasmine, and I think you have the capability to do more than you think. If you ever want some advice or someone to guide you, don't hesitate to reach out." Jasmine's breath caught in her throat. She felt the weight of his words settle on her chest like 1,000 pounds, but in a strange way, it felt like relief. Potential. The word echoed in her mind again, just as it had when she first read the note. Was this real? Was this really happening? "Thank you," she said, feeling a lump in her throat. I don't even know what to say." "You don't have to say anything," Elon replied with a soft smile. "Just remember, you don't have to do this alone. You can reach out whenever you're ready to take that first step." Jasmine stood there, dumbfounded. She watched as Elon Musk walked out of the diner and disappeared into the cool night air, leaving her standing at the door, clutching her bag tightly, heart racing. In that moment, something shifted inside her. The doubts that had plagued her for so long began to fade. Maybe, just maybe, there was a way out. There was a way to make a change, to reach for the life she had always dreamed of. But she knew one thing for sure. This was no ordinary moment. This was the chance of a lifetime, and she couldn't let it slip away. As Jasmine walked to her car, the evening sky stretched out above her, and she realized she was no longer walking in the shadow of her fears. She was finally stepping into the light of possibility. Her journey had just begun. The next few days felt like a whirlwind for Jasmine. She couldn't stop thinking about what Elon Musk had said. His words echoed in her mind, each one taking root deeper and deeper, transforming the doubts that had once clouded her thoughts into something more. You don't have to do this alone. She had always thought of herself as a solitary figure, bearing the weight of everything on her shoulders. She didn't need help, or so she convinced herself. But now, standing on the precipice of something new, the idea of reaching out, of asking for guidance, even from someone like Elon Musk, seemed less like an impossible dream and more like a tangible possibility. But the real question was, what next? She had spent years taking care of Amara, holding down a job at the diner, just making ends meet. The thought of stepping out of her routine, of risking everything for a shot at something greater, felt like an insurmountable mountain. But then, there was the note. There was the look in Elon's eyes when he told her that he believed in her potential. The seed had been planted, and for the first time in years, Jasmine wasn't sure if she could ignore it anymore. She found herself standing in front of her mirror, staring at her reflection, as if searching for the courage she had never had before. Her fingers traced the edges of the note Elon had given her, now folded neatly in her pocket. Maybe it was time to stop waiting for a miracle and start creating her own. "I'm not just a waitress," Jasmine whispered to herself, though the words still felt foreign on her lips. "I can be more." That night, after putting Amara to bed, Jasmine sat at her kitchen table, the dim light from the lamp casting shadows around her. She opened her laptop, the screen flickering to life as her thoughts raced. She had Googled Elon Musk 1,000 times in the past, reading articles about his companies, his achievements, and his visions for the future. But now, she wasn't just fascinated by his ideas. She was inspired by them. Could she really do this? Could she really break free from everything she had known and create something new? Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, then paused. What do I even have to offer? The question stopped her cold. She had never considered herself an expert in anything. What did she know that someone like Elon Musk would find valuable? But as she thought more about it, she realized she had something that couldn't be found in textbooks or online courses. She had resilience. She had a sense of grit that came from years of scraping by, of fighting to survive. She had an instinct for overcoming obstacles and finding solutions, even when things seemed impossible. Those were the qualities that had gotten her this far. And maybe, just maybe, those were the qualities that could get her to the next level. Jasmine took a deep breath, then typed her first message. "Dear Mr. Musk, I hope this message finds you well. My name is Jasmine, and we met a few days ago at the Silver Spoon. I have to admit, I've been thinking a lot about our conversation and the note you gave me. It's been an eye-opener, and for the first time in a long while, I'm feeling a spark of hope that maybe I can do more with my life than I ever thought possible. I'm reaching out because I would love to ask for your advice. I've spent most of my life working hard to provide for my daughter, but I feel like there's something bigger waiting for me, something I've yet to uncover. If you have any words of wisdom or guidance, I would be so grateful. Thank you for taking the time to read this. Sincerely, Jasmine, asterisk." Her hands trembled as she hit send. There was no turning back now. She had put herself out there, taken the first step into the unknown. She could only hope that Elon Musk, this man who had changed the course of history with his ideas, would take the time to offer her the guidance she needed. As soon as she hit send, she leaned back in her chair, feeling the weight of the decision settle on her. She had done it. She had taken a leap, even though she wasn't sure where it would land. The next morning, as she was getting ready for work, her phone buzzed. She stared at the screen, half expecting it to be just another email from a bill collector or a reminder about an upcoming shift. But when she saw the name pop up, her heart skipped a beat. Elon Musk, 9:15 a.m. She opened the email with trembling hands, reading it over and over as though she couldn't believe what she was seeing. "Jasmine, thank you for reaching out. I believe everyone has the ability to make a difference, regardless of where they start. The key is to never stop learning and growing. Keep pushing yourself to explore new ideas and take risks. But most importantly, find something you are passionate about and work relentlessly toward it. If you're serious about making a change, I'd be happy to set up a meeting to talk more. Best regards, Elon Musk, asterisk." Jasmine stared at the email, her heart racing. A meeting? She felt like she was living in a dream. A meeting with Elon Musk? It didn't seem real. Her fingers hovered over the reply button, but the words wouldn't come. She had no idea how to respond. What could she possibly say to someone like him? She had spent so much of her life doubting her abilities, questioning her worth, and here was this man, offering her an opportunity to change it all. Jasmine took a deep breath, her mind racing. This is it. This is my chance. She quickly typed out a response. "Dear Mr. Musk, thank you so much for your kind response. I can't tell you how much it means to me. I am eager to take the next step, to push myself beyond the limitations I've had for so long. I would be honored to meet with you and discuss what comes next. Sincerely, Jasmine, asterisk." She hit send and sat back in her chair, heart pounding in her chest. The first step had been taken. Now, all she had to do was show up. Jasmine knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. But for the first time, She felt something she hadn't felt in a long time, hope. And this time, she wasn't going to let it slip away. It was a cold morning when Jasmine walked into the sleek, glass building that housed Tesla's headquarters in Palo Alto. She could feel her heartbeat racing in her chest, the echo of her steps reverberating against the polished floors as she made her way past the modern, minimalist decor. The entire space was so different from the diner she'd worked at for so many years, cold, sterile, and yet somehow inviting. She felt a strange mix of awe and disbelief. A week ago, she had been a single mom working double shifts at the Silver Spoon, just trying to make ends meet. Now, here she was, standing in the heart of one of the most innovative companies in the world, ready to meet Elon Musk himself. It felt like a dream. The receptionist greeted her with a polite smile and checked her name on the list before directing her to a lounge area. Jasmine sat down, trying to calm her nerves, but it was difficult. The whole situation felt surreal. This wasn't supposed to happen to someone like her. She had always kept her expectations low, never imagining that anything more than a simple life in a small town was possible. But now, here she was. She pulled out her phone and checked the time. It was still early. The meeting was scheduled for 10 a.m., and she was about 15 minutes early. As she waited, she replayed everything in her mind. The email exchange, the way Elon had responded with such sincerity, and how his words had sparked something inside her. "You can do this, Jasmine. You can make a change." Her thoughts were interrupted when a soft chime sounded, signaling that her appointment was ready. She stood up quickly, smoothing out her clothes, trying to look more composed than she felt. The receptionist smiled at her and gestured to the door. "Mr. Musk is expecting you. Right this way." Jasmine nodded, her stomach flipping as she followed the receptionist down a hallway to an elevator. She was about to meet one of the most famous entrepreneurs in the world, and all she had to go on were her own instincts and the spark of hope he had ignited in her. The elevator doors opened with a soft chime, and she stepped out into a large, open office area. It was even more modern and immaculate than she had imagined. White walls, floor-to-ceiling windows, sleek black furniture. But in the center of the room, standing next to a desk cluttered with papers and a half-drunk cup of coffee, was Elon Musk himself. He was just as she remembered. A tall, lean figure with sharp features and an intensity that seemed to radiate from him. His eyes were focused on the papers in front of him, but when he noticed her standing in the doorway, he immediately straightened up and gave her a warm, genuine smile. "Jasmine," he said, his voice calm but with an edge of curiosity. "It's good to see you. I'm glad you made it." She smiled, though it felt slightly awkward, and shook his hand. "Thank you for meeting with me, Mr. Musk. I can't believe I'm actually here." He chuckled, the sound deep and reassuring. "No need for the formalities, Jasmine. Call me Elon." Jasmine nodded, still feeling a little out of place in such a grand setting. "Okay, Elon." He gestured to a seat across from him, and Jasmine sat down, trying to mask her nerves. Elon watched her for a moment, his gaze thoughtful, before speaking again. "So, tell me a little more about you, Jasmine," he said, his tone casual but interested. "What's your story?" Jasmine swallowed hard, but she knew this was her moment. She couldn't be afraid anymore. She had to be honest. "Well, I've been a waitress for most of my adult life. I have a daughter, Amara, and I've worked hard to provide for her. I've always been focused on just getting by, making sure we have enough money for rent, food, school. But lately, I've been thinking about something more. I want to do something bigger, something that will make a real difference in the world, not just for me but for Amara. And I guess I'm just trying to figure out how." Elon listened intently, nodding as she spoke. His eyes were sharp, assessing, but there was a softness to his expression, as though he could see the depth of her struggle and the potential hidden beneath her words. When she finished, there was a moment of silence before he leaned back in his chair, steepling his fingers. "Jasmine, I can tell you're someone who has faced a lot of challenges. You've been living in survival mode for so long that it's hard to even imagine anything different. But the thing about potential is that it's not just about what you can do today. It's about what you're willing to work toward tomorrow. If you want to change your life, it's going to take a lot more than just wanting it. It's about taking action, even when it feels like you're jumping into the unknown. Jasmine nodded slowly, absorbing his words. She had heard advice like this before, but coming from someone like him, it felt different, more real, more tangible. She was starting to understand what he meant. For so long, she had lived in fear of failure, of taking a risk that might not pay off. But now, hearing him speak so plainly, she realized that fear would only hold her back. He continued, his voice steady but filled with passion. The thing that makes people like me different is that we don't wait for the perfect moment. We take the first step, even if we don't know where the path leads. If you want to change your life, you need to find that one thing you're willing to put everything into, and then do it. No excuses, no regrets, just action. Jasmine felt a surge of determination flood through her. She had always felt like her options were limited, like she had to choose between survival and success. But now, sitting across from Elon Musk, she realized something important. She didn't have to choose. She could have both, if she was willing to take the leap. Elon smiled, as though sensing the shift in her, and stood up. I'm glad we could have this conversation, Jasmine. I think you have what it takes to make this work. If you're serious about making a change, I'm happy to help you however I can. But remember, it's going to be a long road, and it won't be easy. But nothing worth having ever is. Jasmine stood up as well, her heart swelling with a mixture of excitement and fear. She had no idea what the future held, but for the first time in her life, she was willing to find out. Thank you, Elon, she said, her voice full of emotion. Thank you for believing in me. He nodded, his expression kind. You're welcome, Jasmine. Now, go make it happen. As she walked out of the building and into the cool air of Palo Alto, Jasmine felt a new energy coursing through her. She wasn't just a waitress anymore. She wasn't just a single mom struggling to get by. She was someone who had a dream, and for the first time in years, she believed it could come true. The days following her meeting with Elon Musk passed in a blur, but the weight of his words continued to press down on her with each passing hour. Jasmine had never expected to feel so alive. She had always been someone who followed the rules, someone who played it safe, always keeping her head down and doing what was necessary to survive. But now, she was standing on the edge of something bigger than herself. And though the fear still lingered, it was slowly being replaced by something stronger, determination. Jasmine spent the next few days reflecting on what Elon had said. Find that one thing you're willing to put everything into. The idea was simple but powerful. For the first time, she was considering what she truly wanted out of life. What was worth fighting for? Her mind kept coming back to the same thing. Amara. Everything Jasmine did, every choice she made, was for her daughter. But there was a part of her that knew she needed to do this for herself too. She couldn't continue to live in a cycle of fear, of always wondering what might have been. If she wanted to give Amara a better future, she had to believe that she could change her own future first. But where to begin? She sat down one evening after Amara had gone to bed, the kitchen light casting long shadows over the countertop as she stared at a blank piece of paper. She had written her dreams down before. Small goals, things she thought she could accomplish if only she had the time or the money. But tonight, she knew she had to think bigger. This was no longer about surviving. It was about thriving. Her pen hovered over the paper as she made the first mark. Start something new. Something that excites you. She paused, unsure of what that could even look like. A business? A career in tech? An idea bubbled in her mind, but it felt too far-fetched. What did she know about business or technology? But then she remembered her conversation with Elon. Take action, even when it feels like you're jumping into the unknown. Maybe that was the key, stopping herself from overthinking and just doing. She picked up her phone and began scrolling through a list of ideas, reading articles and watching videos about women who had started their own businesses. She was amazed at how many stories were out there. Women who had started with nothing and built something from the ground up. They all shared one thing in common. They didn't let fear stop them. Suddenly, something clicked. It was small at first, a spark of an idea that made her heart race. What if she could use her experiences as a single mom, as a working-class woman, to help others? What if she could create a platform where women could share their stories, inspire each other, and build a community of support? It wasn't a perfect idea, And she didn't have all the answers, but she had the most important thing, passion. And maybe that was all she needed to get started. Her fingers moved quickly over the keyboard as she typed out her thoughts, not bothering to edit herself, just allowing the ideas to flow freely. A blog, a community, resources for women to start their own businesses or improve their lives. There was a world of possibilities. Jasmine sat back in her chair and stared at the screen. The fear was still there, gnawing at the edges of her confidence. What if it didn't work? What if people didn't care about her ideas? But she pushed the doubts away. I have to try. The next morning, she called in sick to work. It was the first time in a long while that she had given herself permission to do something for herself. She took a deep breath and stared at the computer screen again. It was time to take action. She spent the next few hours researching how to start a blog. She learned about hosting sites, domain names, and content management systems. Jasmine didn't know much about tech, but she had always been good at figuring things out. She took it step by step, piecing everything together. She didn't have a fancy website yet, just a simple page with a few words. Empowered women supporting women. Her heart pounded as she clicked publish. There it was, her first step. But even though she had taken that step, the fear crept back in. What now? What if no one reads this? What if I fail? She grabbed the note Elon had given her and read it again. Believe in yourself. It was a simple message, but it felt like a lifeline. She decided to take the next step too. She shared her blog on social media, something she had never done before. The response was slow at first, just a few likes, a few comments, but it was enough to keep her going. Jasmine knew this was just the beginning. It wasn't going to be easy, and it wouldn't happen overnight. But for the first time in a long time, she felt like she had control over her future. Later that day, when Amara came home from school, Jasmine felt a renewed sense of purpose. As Amara chattered excitedly about her day, Jasmine listened with a smile, her thoughts not only on the challenges ahead, but also on the hope that had begun to grow inside her. She wasn't just a waitress anymore. She wasn't just a mother struggling to make ends meet. She was someone with a dream that was finally taking shape. And no matter how hard it got, she wasn't going to stop. The next few weeks felt like a roller coaster. Jasmine had hit the ground running, but there were moments when she wasn't sure if she was making any progress at all. Starting her blog had felt like a powerful first step, but turning it into something real, something people would care about, was a whole different challenge. At first, it was exhilarating, writing posts, brainstorming ideas, and putting herself out there. She even began to reach out to women online, trying to connect with others who were passionate about empowerment and community. Slowly, she started building a small following. A handful of people from her old network and a few strangers who had stumbled upon her posts left encouraging comments, which kept her motivated. But despite the small successes, Jasmine often found herself battling doubt. She had no formal training in business or marketing. She was learning everything from scratch, building a website, creating content, and trying to figure out how to make it all work. Every day, she found herself spending hours online, watching tutorials and reading articles, only to realize how much she didn't know. At times, it felt like she was drowning in a sea of technical jargon and to-do lists that never seemed to get shorter. The hardest part wasn't the work. It was the loneliness that came with it. Jasmine was used to being self-sufficient, used to fighting battles alone. But there were moments when she wanted someone, just one person, to tell her she was doing the right thing. She thought about Elon and the meeting they had. His confidence in her had been so reassuring. But now, as she faced the reality of building something from the ground up, she wasn't sure if she could live up to the expectations, even her own. But she kept going. It wasn't just about her anymore. Jasmine thought about Amara, how much she wanted to show her daughter that anything was possible if you were willing to work for it. Every morning, Amara would ask her what she was doing on the computer, and Jasmine would smile and explain she was working on something special, a place where women could support each other and learn from one another. It made Jasmine feel like she was on the right path, even if it didn't feel like it on some days. One evening, after another long day of researching and tweaking her site, Jasmine sat on the couch, exhausted. She stared at her phone, scrolling through her social media feed, seeing all the polished, perfect lives that seemed to be everywhere. Other women launching businesses, writing books, traveling the world. all things that seemed so out of reach for her. She felt the familiar pang of doubt, the same one she had pushed down time and time again. What makes me think I can do this? She set her phone down and closed her eyes, taking a deep breath. She remembered Elon's words, "Take action, even when it feels like you're jumping into the unknown." He had told her that everyone had the ability to make a difference, and it wasn't about waiting for everything to be perfect. It was about pushing forward. Jasmine realized she was looking at it all wrong. She had been focused on the end result, on having a big following, on creating the perfect brand, on succeeding in the way other people did. But maybe the real success was in the journey itself. Maybe it wasn't about getting it right every time. Maybe it was about showing up, even when it was hard. She smiled to herself, standing up and walking into the kitchen to make a cup of tea. As she waited for the water to boil, she felt a sense of clarity she hadn't felt in days. She wasn't going to let the fear of imperfection hold her back. She would keep working, even if it meant starting small, one step at a time. The next day, she made a decision. She would stop comparing herself to others. She would stop worrying about how much further ahead everyone else seemed to be. Her journey wasn't going to look like anyone else's, and that was okay. The very next morning, Jasmine decided to write a blog post about the realities of starting a business, especially when you had no experience and very little money. She was tired of trying to appear perfect, tired of hiding the struggles and the failures. It was time to be honest. As she wrote, her fingers moving quickly over the keyboard, Jasmine realized that writing about her own journey felt freeing. She wasn't pretending to be someone she wasn't. She was telling the truth, raw and unfiltered. The post spoke about the ups and downs of starting something new, about the moments of doubt, the late nights, the exhaustion, but also about the hope that kept her going. When she finished the post, she hesitated. Should she publish it? Was it too vulnerable? Too real? But then she remembered the community she was building, the women who were following her, the women who might need to hear this. She clicked publish and sat back, feeling both terrified and empowered. To her surprise, the post received an overwhelmingly positive response. Women began commenting, sharing their own stories, talking about their own struggles with self-doubt and fear. Some even sent her messages, thanking her for being honest, for showing them that they weren't alone. For the first time in a while, Jasmine felt like she was on the right path. She had started small, but she had taken that crucial first step. The journey wasn't easy, and it wouldn't always be smooth, but she was doing something real. She was making a difference, one story at a time. That night, as she sat down with Amara for their nightly routine of reading a story before bed, Jasmine looked at her daughter and smiled. "You know, sweetie, sometimes it's okay to not have everything figured out right away. But the most important thing is to keep trying." Amara nodded, curling up next to her mother. Jasmine kissed her on the forehead, feeling a warmth inside that had nothing to do with the struggles she had faced that day. It was the warmth of knowing that she was showing her daughter something important, the courage to start, even when you're scared. Weeks passed, and Jasmine's journey continued, one small step at a time. The days blended into one another. Some days she felt like she was gaining ground, while on others, it seemed like she was right back where she started. But despite the ups and downs, she kept moving forward. Her blog was growing, slowly but surely. More women were engaging with her content, sharing their experiences, and leaving comments that resonated with her. There was something profoundly rewarding about connecting with others, especially when they had been in the same place of uncertainty and fear. But the breakthrough Jasmine had been hoping for didn't come overnight. In fact, it was almost like an accident. It started with a casual message from someone named Sarah, a woman Jasmine had never met. Sarah had been following her blog for a few weeks and had read the post where Jasmine shared her story about how she was juggling her new business while still working as a waitress. Sarah's message was simple. "Hi Jasmine, I love what you're doing. I work for a small marketing agency, and I think your blog has a lot of potential. I'd love to offer some help, free of charge, just to get you started." Jasmine stared at the message for a moment, her heart racing. Could this be real? It seemed too good to be true. Sarah didn't know her from anyone else, and yet here she was, offering help. Jasmine had always been cautious about accepting help from strangers, especially online, but something about Sarah's tone felt genuine. After a few moments of hesitation, Jasmine decided to take a leap of faith. "Thank you, Sarah," she replied. "I'd love to hear what you have in mind. I'm still learning as I go, and any advice would be so appreciated." The next day, Jasmine hopped onto a video call with Sarah. Sarah was warm and welcoming, and Jasmine immediately felt at ease. They spent the next hour discussing Jasmine's blog, what she had been doing so far, and where she wanted to go. Sarah asked insightful questions, offering guidance on how to optimize her content, how to target her audience, and how to improve the overall user experience on her website. It was the kind of practical advice Jasmine had been craving for so long. Amara nodded, curling up next to her mother. Jasmine kissed her on the forehead, feeling a warmth inside that had nothing to do with the struggles she had faced that day. It was the warmth of knowing that she was showing her daughter something important, the courage to start, even when you're scared. Weeks passed, and Jasmine's journey continued, one small step at a time. The days blended into one another. Some days she felt like she was gaining ground, while on others, it seemed like she was right back where she started. But despite the ups and downs, she kept moving forward. Her blog was growing, slowly but surely. More women were engaging with her content, sharing their experiences, and leaving comments that resonated with her. There was something profoundly rewarding about connecting with others, especially when they had been in the same place of uncertainty and fear. But the breakthrough Jasmine had been hoping for didn't come overnight. In fact, it was almost like an accident. It started with a casual message from someone named Sarah, a woman Jasmine had never met. Sarah had been following her blog for a few weeks and had read the post where Jasmine shared her story about how she was juggling her new business while still working as a waitress. Sarah's message was simple. "Hi, Jasmine. I love what you're doing. I work for a small marketing agency, and I think your blog has a lot of potential. I'd love to offer some help, free of charge, just to get you started." Jasmine stared at the message for a moment, her heart racing. Could this be real? It seemed too good to be true. Sarah didn't know her from anyone else, and yet here she was, offering help. Jasmine had always been cautious about accepting help from strangers, especially online, but something about Sarah's tone felt genuine. After a few moments of hesitation, Jasmine decided to take a leap of faith. "Thank you, Sarah," she replied. "I'd love to hear what you have in mind. I'm still learning as I go, and any advice would be so appreciated." The next day, Jasmine hopped onto a video call with Sarah. Sarah was warm and welcoming, and Jasmine immediately felt at ease. They spent the next hour discussing Jasmine's blog, what she had been doing so far, and where she wanted to go. Sarah asked insightful questions, offering guidance on how to optimize her content, how to target her audience, and how to improve the overall user experience on her website. It was the kind of practical advice Jasmine had been craving for so long. It was those small moments of encouragement that kept Jasmine going. The support from her daughter, from her new community of women, and from the people who believed in her when she couldn't believe in herself. She had come so far from the days of waiting tables at the Silver Spoon, and now she could finally see the path to something more. But Jasmine knew that this wasn't the end. This was just the beginning. The challenges were far from over, but the breakthroughs were becoming more frequent. Every email, every comment, every conversation with another woman who was trying to make a change, it all fueled her. Her goal wasn't just to build a successful blog or a thriving business. It was to create something that would last, something that could help other women rise, just like she was. She was learning, growing, and evolving every day, but she was doing it with purpose. As she sat back in her chair, taking in the success of the past few weeks, she reminded herself of something important. You have to keep going, no matter how small the steps. The breakthrough you're waiting for is always closer than you think. Jasmine had begun to feel the momentum, the excitement of seeing her blog grow and her community expand. It was incredible, but with growth came new challenges. The quiet days of uncertainty were behind her. Now, she was stepping into uncharted territory, where every decision felt crucial and every mistake could be costly. As the traffic to her site increased, so did her responsibilities. There were emails to answer, new collaborations to organize, and constant updates to keep up with. Jasmine had always been good at managing her time, but now she was juggling more than she ever had before. There were moments when she felt like she couldn't breathe, moments when the weight of it all felt like it might crush her. One afternoon, She found herself sitting at her desk, staring at her to-do list. It was longer than ever, things that needed to be done today, things that needed to be done by the end of the week, things that were still in the planning stages. It was overwhelming, and for the first time in a while, she wondered if she had bitten off more than she could chew. Amara had been spending more time with her grandmother lately, and Jasmine was grateful for the extra time to work, but she missed her daughter. There were evenings when Amara would come home, and Jasmine would be so tired that she could barely muster the energy to make dinner, let alone play with her. The balance between work and motherhood was becoming harder to maintain, and Jasmine knew she had to find a way to make it work without burning out. She was on a call with Sarah one afternoon, discussing the latest updates to her blog and the next phase of her strategy, when Sarah asked, "How's everything going, Jasmine? You seem a little off today." Jasmine sighed, running her hand through her hair. "It's just a lot. I'm happy with the progress, but I'm starting to feel like I'm juggling too much. I've got the blog, the email list, the collaborations, and I'm still working at the restaurant. I feel like I'm stretched too thin." Sarah paused for a moment and then said, "I think you might need to rethink your approach. It's great that you're growing, but at some point, you have to figure out what really matters and focus on that. It might be time to delegate some things." Jasmine felt a knot tighten in her stomach. Delegate? But I can't afford to hire anyone right now. I'm barely scraping by as it is. Sarah's voice was gentle but firm. "I get that, but maybe there are things you can outsource. You don't have to do everything yourself. There are virtual assistants, freelance writers, people who can help with social media management. It might cost you a little, but it could free up your time and energy for the things that really need your attention." Jasmine was silent for a moment, the idea weighing heavily on her. She had always been fiercely independent, always prided herself on doing everything on her own. But maybe Sarah was right. Maybe it was time to let go of some of the control. After the call, Jasmine spent some time researching options for outsourcing. She found several affordable freelance websites and looked at the profiles of people who could assist with writing, social media, and administrative tasks. She was surprised at how many talented individuals were available for short-term projects. It wasn't a perfect solution, but it was a start. Still, the idea of spending money when she didn't have much was a difficult decision. Jasmine ran the numbers over and over in her head. Could she really afford it? Would the return on investment be worth it? She had to make sure every dollar counted. Finally, after a restless night of worrying, Jasmine decided to take the plunge. She posted an ad on a freelance site for a virtual assistant who could help her manage emails and organize her schedule. It wasn't much, but it was a step in the right direction. The next week, she hired a young woman named Claire, who was eager to help and had experience working with bloggers. Claire was professional, efficient, and patient as she helped Jasmine streamline her day-to-day operations. For the first time in a long while, Jasmine felt a weight lift from her shoulders. Having someone else handle the administrative tasks gave her more time to focus on the creative side of her business. But there was still the issue of balancing her work at the restaurant with her growing blog. Jasmine couldn't shake the feeling that her time at the Silver Spoon was a drain on her energy and creativity. It had been her steady paycheck for years, but now, it was starting to feel like a distraction. One evening, as she wiped down the counter at the end of her shift, her coworker Emily came over and leaned on the bar. "You okay, Jasmine? You've been looking a little more stressed lately." Jasmine smiled faintly. "Yeah, just a lot going on. My blog is growing, but I feel like I'm constantly running in circles. Between the restaurant and everything else, I'm exhausted." Emily raised an eyebrow. You don't have to keep working here forever, right?" Jasmine paused, feeling the weight of Emily's words. "I know, but I can't just quit. I still need the income, especially with Amara and all the bills." "True," Emily said, "but maybe it's time to think about transitioning. What if you started cutting back your hours here? You could free up more time for your blog and maybe even take on some side gigs related to it." Jasmine frowned, considering the possibility. "But what if I take that risk and things don't work out? What if the blog doesn't pay off?" Emily shrugged. "At some point, you have to take a chance. You've been working at this place for a long time. Maybe it's time for a change." The conversation lingered in Jasmine's mind for days. Emily's suggestion felt like the answer to the question that had been plaguing her for months. Was she willing to take the leap and let go of the safety net of her restaurant job? Could she trust herself to make her business work? The decision wasn't easy, but Jasmine knew deep down that she couldn't keep living in fear. She had started her blog with nothing but a dream and a lot of hard work. Now, it was time to believe in herself enough to take the next step. A few days later, Jasmine handed in her notice at the Silver Spoon. She was scared, but the fear was different now. It wasn't the paralyzing kind that kept her from moving forward. It was the kind of fear that came with growth, with change, and Jasmine was ready for it. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? The decision to quit her job at the Silver Spoon had come with a mixture of excitement and anxiety. Jasmine spent her last day at the restaurant trying to stay present, feeling a sense of finality in each task she completed. As she wiped down the counter for the last time, a sense of relief washed over her. She had made the leap. There was no turning back now. The next morning, Jasmine woke up early, her mind buzzing with the possibilities of the future. She had the whole day ahead of her, free from the confines of waiting tables. For the first time in years, she didn't have to rush to work or count down the hours until her shift ended. This was her time to focus on her blog, to truly give it the attention it deserved. She took a deep breath and sat down at her desk, her laptop open in front of her. The possibilities felt endless. She had ideas for new content, strategies to grow her brand, and dreams of creating something more than just a blog. She wanted a platform that would empower women to take control of their own lives, to find strength in their shared stories. But as she sat there, her mind suddenly went blank. It was overwhelming. She didn't know where to begin. There were so many directions she could go, so many things she could do. Should she work on marketing? Write more posts? Work on collaborations? Or focus on the business side of things? It was like standing at the edge of a vast ocean, unsure of which wave to ride first. Just then, her phone buzzed. It was a text from Sarah. "I know things are crazy, but remember to take it one step at a time. You've got this, Jasmine. I believe in you." Jasmine smiled and took a deep breath. She was grateful for Sarah's encouragement. Sometimes, all she needed was a little reminder that she wasn't alone on this journey. That day, Jasmine made a decision. Instead of trying to do everything at once, she would break it down into manageable pieces. She would start with the content, create something that truly resonated with her audience. From there, she would slowly build out the rest. There was no rush, no deadline. She had given herself the gift of time. Over the next few days, Jasmine dove into writing. She crafted posts that were deeply personal, stories about her own struggles, triumphs, and lessons learned along the way. She wasn't just talking about business. She was talking about life, the messy, beautiful, complicated life that everyone could relate to. One evening, after finishing a particularly vulnerable post about her journey as a single mother and an entrepreneur, Jasmine sat back in her chair and reread what she had written. It was raw, real, and full of emotion. For the first time in a while, she felt proud of the work she was creating. She wasn't trying to be perfect. She was just being herself, and that was enough. She hit publish, and within minutes, the post began to gain traction. Comments and messages poured in. Women from all over the world resonated with her words. They shared their own stories of struggle, of starting over, of finding their strength. It was exactly what Jasmine had hoped for. A space where women could connect, share, and support one another. But as the days went on, Jasmine began to realize something important. The comments and messages were not just validation. They were a reminder of the impact she was having. She wasn't just sharing her story. She was helping others find their voice, their courage, their strength. She was building a community, one post at a time. As her blog continued to grow, Jasmine started to explore other opportunities for collaboration. She reached out to a few women in her network, asking if they would be interested in writing guest posts or sharing their expertise with her audience. The responses were overwhelmingly positive, and soon she had several women on board, each of them contributing to the platform in their own unique way. It was around this time that Jasmine received an email from an unexpected source. The subject line simply read, "A proposal from Elon Musk." Jasmine blinked, rubbing her eyes in disbelief. She opened the email slowly, half expecting it to be a joke or some kind of spam. But as she read, her heart started to race. The email was from a representative of Elon Musk, someone who had followed Jasmine's blog and believed in what she was doing. They wanted to help her take her platform to the next level. They were offering her an opportunity to meet with Elon himself, to discuss potential ways they could work together to amplify her message and expand her reach. Jasmine sat in stunned silence for a moment. She couldn't believe what she was reading. This was the kind of breakthrough she had only dreamed of, a chance to collaborate with someone who had the resources and influence to help her make a real difference. The email included a link to schedule a meeting, and after what felt like an eternity, Jasmine clicked on it. She was nervous, but she knew this was an opportunity she couldn't pass up. This could be the moment that changed everything for her, the moment that launched her platform into the next phase. As the days passed and the meeting with Elon drew closer, Jasmine tried to focus on the task at hand. She knew she had to prepare, had to make sure she was ready for whatever opportunity might arise. But at the same time, she couldn't shake the feeling of disbelief. How had she gone from waiting tables at the Silver Spoon to receiving an email from Elon Musk? The journey she had embarked on was nothing short of miraculous, and it was only just beginning. Jasmine's heart raced as the day of the meeting with Elon Musk finally arrived. For weeks, she had been pacing her apartment, overthinking every detail, wondering if she was truly prepared for what was about to happen. She had researched everything she could about Elon, his ventures, and his passion for innovation. She knew that this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and she was determined to make the most of it. She woke up early that morning, her nerves keeping her from going back to sleep. Amara was still asleep, and Jasmine took a few moments to breathe deeply, trying to calm her nerves. She couldn't afford to let fear get the best of her, not today. This was her moment, her chance to take her dreams to the next level. After a quick shower and a cup of coffee, Jasmine carefully dressed in a business casual outfit. She chose a simple yet elegant navy blue dress, hoping it would help her look professional but still authentic. She knew that being herself was the most important thing she could do. She glanced at the clock. It was almost time to leave. As she kissed Amara goodbye, she whispered, "Wish me luck, baby girl. I'm doing this for both of us." Amara, still half asleep, nodded and smiled. "Good luck, Mom. I know you'll do great." With her heart in her throat, Jasmine walked out the door and headed toward the office building where the meeting would take place. Her phone buzzed on the way, a message from Sarah. "You've got this. Remember, you're more than capable. Just be you. Can't wait to hear how it goes." Jasmine smiled and typed back a quick reply. "Thanks, Sarah. I'll keep you posted." The building was sleek and modern, its glass walls reflecting the clear blue sky above. She felt a wave of awe wash over her as she entered the lobby, the grandeur of the place almost overwhelming. The receptionist smiled at her and directed her to the elevator, where she was escorted to the top floor. Jasmine's stomach fluttered with anticipation, her mind racing with questions. Was she really ready for this? What if she didn't impress him? When the elevator doors opened, Jasmine was greeted by a calm and friendly assistant who led her to a meeting room. The room was minimalist, with a large glass table in the center, surrounded by sleek chairs. She took a seat, trying to calm her breathing as she waited. It wasn't long before the door opened again, and Elon Musk walked in. He was exactly as she had imagined, confident, focused, but with an approachable air. He smiled at her and extended his hand. "Jasmine, it's a pleasure to meet you. I've been following your blog for a while now, and I think you're doing incredible work." Jasmine shook his hand, trying to keep her composure. "Thank you, Mr. Musk. It's an honor to meet you." He nodded and took a seat across from her, his expression thoughtful. "I've been reading through your posts and seeing how you're building this community of women. It's inspiring, honestly. You've created something powerful, something that resonates with a lot of people." Jasmine felt her confidence growing, but she still couldn't shake the feeling that she was in the presence of someone who had achieved so much. Elon Musk. The name alone carried weight. But Jasmine reminded herself that she was here because of her own hard work and determination. "So, tell me more about what you're hoping to achieve with your platform," Elon asked, leaning forward slightly. "What's your vision for the future?" Jasmine took a deep breath, then began. My goal is to create a space where women can share their stories, find strength in each other, and take charge of their own lives. I want to empower women to not just dream, but to act on those dreams. I've come from a place of struggle, and I know that there are other women out there who feel the same way. My platform is for them. Elon listened intently, his eyes focused on her as she spoke. Jasmine could see that he was genuinely interested in her mission, and it gave her the courage to continue. I want to make sure that the content I create is accessible, impactful, and authentic, she continued. But to do that, I need the resources to scale. I want to expand my reach and help more women. And I believe that with the right support, I can turn this into something that not only changes lives but builds a sustainable business. There was a pause as Elon sat back in his chair, his fingers tapping lightly on the table. Jasmine held her breath, waiting for him to respond. She had prepared for every possible scenario, but she still couldn't shake the uncertainty of the moment. Finally, Elon spoke. You've got something special, Jasmine. I believe in what you're doing. What you're building is more than just a blog. It's a movement. And movements need to be supported. What I can offer you is mentorship and resources to help you grow. I've worked with a lot of startups, and I see a lot of potential in your platform. Jasmine's heart skipped a beat. Was he serious? Mentorship? Resources? The opportunity to learn from someone like him? It felt almost too good to be true. Are you saying? Jasmine trailed off, unsure if she could process what was happening. Elon smiled, his expression warm yet focused. I'm saying that I think your platform can go places, Jasmine, and I'd like to help you get there. Let's talk about how we can work together. Jasmine's mind was racing. This was the opportunity of a lifetime. An opportunity to take her dream to the next level, to make a real impact, and to change lives on a much larger scale. Thank you, Jasmine said, her voice shaking slightly. I don't even know what to say. This means everything to me. Elon chuckled. You don't have to say anything yet. Let's just take it one step at a time. I'll have my team reach out to you with the details, but first, let's make sure we're aligned on the vision. I believe we can do something great together. As the meeting wrapped up, Jasmine felt like she was floating. She had walked into that room unsure of what the future held, and now she was leaving with an incredible partnership on the horizon. It felt surreal, but she knew that this was the beginning of something extraordinary. When she stepped out of the building and onto the busy streets, Jasmine's phone buzzed. It was a message from Sarah. How did it go? You've got this, I know it. Jasmine smiled as she typed her response, her fingers flying across the screen. It went better than I could have ever imagined. I think this is the beginning of something huge. As she sent the message, Jasmine couldn't help but think of how far she had come. From a struggling waitress to sitting across from Elon Musk, talking about her dreams for the future. This journey had been nothing short of incredible. And this was just the beginning. Jasmine sat in her car, parked on the side of the street, staring at the message from Sarah. The words seemed to blur for a moment, her mind replaying the events of the last few hours. She had just walked out of a meeting with Elon Musk. Elon Musk? It felt surreal. She had worked so hard, fought so many battles to get to this point, and now, here she was, with an opportunity that could change everything. She took a deep breath and exhaled slowly, trying to calm the adrenaline coursing through her veins. Her phone buzzed again. Another message from Sarah. Are you okay? You sound a little quiet. Tell me everything. Jasmine smiled and quickly typed back. I'm okay. Just processing everything. It's huge, Sarah. He actually believes in what I'm doing. He wants to help me grow. This could be the big break I've been waiting for. She hit send and waited. A few seconds later, Sarah replied, That's incredible. I'm so proud of you. Let's talk soon. I'm dying to hear all the details. Jasmine's thoughts swirled as she drove back home. Her head was full of questions. What would this mentorship look like? How would working with Elon Musk and his team change things for her? Could she really build the business she had always dreamed of? Or would the weight of this opportunity become too much? The moment she stepped inside her apartment, her daughter Amara ran to greet her, her small arms wrapping around Jasmine's waist. How did it go, Mom? Amara asked, her big eyes full of curiosity. Jasmine smiled, bending down to hug her. It went really well, baby. So well. I think this is the start of something amazing. Amara beamed up at her mother. I knew you could do it, Mom. You're the best. Jasmine kissed Amara on the forehead, grateful for her daughter's unwavering belief in her. It was moments like these that made all the hard work worth it. She was doing this for Amara, for herself, for every woman who ever felt underestimated or overlooked. The next few days were a whirlwind. Elon's team reached out with a detailed plan outlining their collaboration, and Jasmine was both excited and overwhelmed. There were meetings to schedule, strategies to develop, and goals to set. It was everything she had ever dreamed of, but now, it all felt so real. As Jasmine sat at her desk, preparing for the first official strategy session with Elon's team, she couldn't help but reflect on the journey that had brought her here. The sleepless nights, the setbacks, the doubts. It had all been worth it. But she knew this was just the beginning. If she wanted to make this work, she would need to push harder than ever before. The first meeting was scheduled for the following week, and Jasmine spent the next several days carefully crafting her vision for the future. She wanted to make sure that whatever they planned together would stay true to her values, to empower women, to create community, and to build a platform that was both meaningful and sustainable. As the meeting approached, Jasmine's nerves began to rise again. This wasn't just a meeting to discuss ideas. It was a pivotal moment for her business. This was the moment where she would either rise to the challenge or let it slip through her fingers. When the day of the meeting finally came, Jasmine dressed with purpose. She wore a simple but polished black blouse and a pair of tailored slacks. Her hair was pulled back neatly, and she made sure to put on a little extra lipstick. She had learned that confidence was key, and if she wanted to make a lasting impression, she needed to look the part. As she entered the meeting room, Elon's team was already gathered around the table. There were several people present, all sharp and professional, their eyes attentive as she walked in. Elon wasn't there, but his presence was felt in the room. It was clear that his influence loomed large over the conversation. Jasmine felt a little out of her depth, but she reminded herself that she had earned her seat at the table. She took a deep breath and began to speak. Thank you all for meeting with me today. I've spent the last few days thinking about where I want to take my platform, and I want to share my vision with all of you. I'm not here just to create a blog. I'm here to create a movement, a space where women can come together, share their stories, and empower each other. As she spoke, Jasmine felt a growing sense of confidence. She wasn't just talking about business. She was talking about her passion, her mission, and the impact she wanted to have. This was what had driven her from the beginning. The belief that women could achieve anything they set their minds to, as long as they had the support and community behind them. The team listened intently, nodding along as Jasmine outlined her ideas for expanding her content, reaching new audiences, and creating more opportunities for women to engage with the platform. She spoke about partnerships, collaborations, and the possibility of launching courses or workshops that would provide women with the tools to take their own dreams to the next level. By the end of the meeting, there was a palpable energy in the room. The team seemed genuinely excited by Jasmine's vision, and the sense of possibility was contagious. They discussed next steps and set a timeline for the coming months. It was ambitious, but Jasmine felt a renewed sense of purpose. You've got a real vision, Jasmine, one of the team members said. I think we can help you get there. Let's make it happen. As Jasmine left the meeting, she felt a mixture of exhaustion and exhilaration. The path ahead would be full of challenges, but she was ready. This was the moment she had been working for her entire life. She was no longer just a waitress, no longer just a woman with a blog. She was a force to be reckoned with, and the world was starting to take notice. At home, Amara was waiting for her, as always. How did it go? Amara asked, bouncing on the couch with excitement. Jasmine smiled, sitting down beside her. It went amazing, baby. They're on board. We've got big plans ahead. Amara hugged her tightly. I knew you could do it. You're going to make the world a better place, Mom. Jasmine held her daughter close, feeling the weight of her words. For the first time in a long time, Jasmine truly believed that she could change the world, one step at a time. As the weeks passed, Jasmine found herself swept up in the whirlwind of meetings, emails, and brainstorming sessions. Every day was packed with tasks, but there was a sense of purpose driving her forward. Her collaboration with Elon Musk's team had given her the resources she needed to scale her platform, and the support she was receiving from their network opened doors she had never imagined possible. But with success came a new set of challenges. The pressure to deliver, to grow faster, to be bigger and better. It all weighed on her shoulders. At times, it felt like she was walking on a tightrope, trying to balance her dreams with the demands of a rapidly expanding business. She couldn't afford to slip, but the stakes were higher than ever. Jasmine sat in her home office one afternoon, the sunlight filtering through the blinds, casting long shadows across the room. She stared at her computer screen, reviewing the analytics for her blog. The numbers were staggering. Her traffic had more than doubled, her follower count had skyrocketed, and brands were reaching out with partnership offers. She had gone from having a few hundred visitors a day to thousands, and the comments and messages from her community were pouring in nonstop. Yet, despite all of the success, Jasmine couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing. She had built a platform that was resonating with people, but was it enough? Was she making the kind of impact she had always dreamed of? She tapped her fingers on the desk, deep in thought. Her blog had been her way of sharing her voice, but now it was becoming a business. She was getting caught up in the metrics, the growth, the expectations. She had started this journey to empower women, to help them find their voices. Was she still staying true to that mission? Her phone buzzed, pulling her out of her thoughts. It was a message from Sarah. "Hey, how's everything going with the new team? I know it's a lot, but you're crushing it. Can't wait to catch up." Jasmine smiled as she read the message. She hadn't had time for a proper catch-up with Sarah lately, but it reminded her of why she started. It wasn't about the fame or the numbers. It was about the women she was helping. The ones who had sent her messages, shared their own stories of overcoming adversity, and thanked her for giving them the courage to take risks in their own lives. She typed back quickly, "It's been crazy but amazing. Lots of meetings, lots of plans for the future. But I've been feeling a little lost in all of it. I'm trying to remember why I started this in the first place." Almost immediately, Sarah replied, "I get it. You've been doing so much, but don't forget to take a step back and breathe. It's okay to slow down and check in with yourself. The world will still be there. And you've got something special, Jasmine. Don't lose sight of that." Jasmine sat back in her chair, letting Sarah's words sink in. She had to admit, she had been so focused on scaling the business that she had lost touch with the core of what made her platform so powerful. It wasn't the numbers or the partnerships. It was the people, the community she had built. She closed her laptop and leaned back in her chair, closing her eyes for a moment. It was time to reconnect with that mission, to remember why she had started all of this. The next day, Jasmine woke up early, her mind clearer than it had been in weeks. She decided to take a different approach to her day. Instead of diving straight into business strategies or analytics, she would focus on the personal connection she had with her audience. She would write a letter that was just for her community, one that spoke to the heart of her mission. She sat at her desk and began typing. "To my incredible community," she began, "I want to take a moment to thank you. Thank you for your support, your vulnerability, your courage. When I started this platform, I had one goal: to create a space where women could come together and feel heard. I wanted to build a place where we could share our stories, our challenges, and our triumphs together. But somewhere along the way, I got caught up in the business side of things, in the numbers, in the expectations, and I lost sight of the reason I started this journey in the first place. It's not about the size of the platform or the partnerships. It's about the impact we can have on each other. It's about the stories we share and the lives we change." So today, I want to refocus. I want to get back to the heart of this mission, to make sure that every piece of content I create, every partnership I explore, and every decision I make is centered on you. It's about your growth, your empowerment, and your success. Together, we can build something that not only changes our lives, but the lives of the women who come after us. Thank you for believing in me. Let's continue to rise together. Jasmine reread the letter, feeling a sense of peace settle over her. This was what she had been missing, the reminder of the deep connection she had with her community. The numbers could wait. What mattered most was the impact she was making. She hit send, and within minutes, the responses began to pour in. Women from all walks of life shared their thoughts, their experiences, their gratitude. They told Jasmine how much her words meant to them, how her journey had inspired them to take their own steps toward empowerment. One message, in particular, stood out. It was from a woman named Clara, a single mother who had just started her own small business. Jasmine, the message read, "I've been following you for months now, and your blog has been the light I needed in the darkest times. I started my business just a few months ago, and it's been so hard, so many late nights and doubts. But your story keeps me going. You remind me that it's possible to build something out of nothing, to fight for the life I want for my daughter. Thank you for everything. You've changed my life." Jasmine's eyes welled with tears as she read Clara's message. This was why she had started. This was the reason she had worked so hard to get to where she was now. Not for the partnerships, not for the fame, but for the women like Clara who were fighting their own battles and finding strength in each other. That night, as Jasmine tucked Amara into bed, she felt a deep sense of gratitude. She was living her dream, but it wasn't about the fame or the money. It was about the difference she was making in the lives of the women who believed in her. And that, Jasmine knew, was worth everything. In the weeks that followed, Jasmine found herself not only expanding her platform but also expanding her sense of purpose. Her message had been clear to her audience, but now it felt more personal than ever. Her goal wasn't just to grow a business. It was to create a ripple effect where women could support and uplift one another on their journeys. One morning, she woke up to a message that would shape the next chapter of her journey. It was from Elon Musk's team, and it was both thrilling and overwhelming. They wanted to take the collaboration further, bringing in more resources and brainstorming how they could truly revolutionize her platform to scale globally. The idea of expanding felt exciting, but it also came with new pressures. Jasmine had always dreamed of reaching more women, of making her voice heard around the world, but the responsibility of that dream was starting to feel daunting. She had to maintain the authenticity of her message while building something much bigger than herself. Sitting at her kitchen table, Jasmine stared at the email on her laptop, reading it over and over again. There was no turning back now. She had the chance to build something that could change lives. But could she handle it? Could she keep the heart of the platform intact as it grew exponentially? She thought of Amara, of the community she had built with her blog, of all the women who had trusted her to help them find their voices. Jasmine knew what she had to do. She needed to find a balance between growth and authenticity. She couldn't lose sight of the reason she had started this journey. That afternoon, she decided to meet with her closest mentor, Sarah. They had been friends for years, and Sarah had been the one person who had always encouraged Jasmine to take risks and follow her dreams. If anyone could help her sort through her thoughts, it was Sarah. At their favorite coffee shop, Jasmine sat across from Sarah, who had a warm smile and a calming presence. She was sipping her cappuccino, looking at Jasmine with an expression that said, "I'm ready to listen." "What's on your mind?" Sarah asked, setting her cup down gently. Jasmine let out a sigh. Elon's team just reached out. They want to take things to the next level, bigger resources, bigger partnerships, and part of me is excited, but another part of me is overwhelmed. I'm afraid that if I scale too quickly, I'll lose the heart of what this is about. Sarah nodded thoughtfully, taking a moment before responding. "You're worried about authenticity, right? That if you expand too fast, it might change the message or the connection you have with your community." Jasmine nodded, feeling a weight in her chest. "Exactly. I've built something meaningful, and I don't want it to just become another business. I want it to be real. I want it to make a difference." Sarah leaned forward slightly. "Jasmine, I think you're overthinking it. Your vision is powerful. You've already proven that you can create something authentic. If you stay grounded in your values, helping women, empowering them, making sure you listen to their needs, you'll be fine. Growing doesn't mean you have to compromise who you are or what you believe in. It just means you have more tools to amplify your voice and make an even bigger impact." Jasmine felt a sense of relief wash over her as she absorbed Sarah's words. "But what if I lose myself in the process?" "You won't," Sarah said, smiling. "You're a force, Jasmine. You know who you are. Just stay true to that. You're doing this for the right reasons, and that's what will guide you. Sometimes the road less traveled is the one that requires the most courage." Jasmine couldn't help but smile back. Her mentor was right. It wasn't the size of the platform that mattered. It was the heart behind it. If she stayed true to her mission, everything else would fall into place. The conversation with Sarah gave Jasmine the clarity she needed. She was going to take the leap. She was going to grow, but she would always keep her community's needs at the forefront. Her mission wasn't just about numbers. It was about creating a space where women felt seen, heard, and supported. The next day, Jasmine got to work. She responded to Elon's team with a clear vision. She was ready to scale, but only if they could ensure the authenticity and mission of her platform would remain intact. She wanted to grow, but she wanted to grow with intention, making sure that every decision aligned with the values that had guided her from the beginning. Days later, a response came through from Elon's team. They were on board. They wanted to help Jasmine create something sustainable, with the focus on community engagement, empowerment, and education. It was the perfect partnership. As Jasmine read the email, her heart raced. This was it. She was about to embark on the next phase of her journey, one that would take her beyond the blog, beyond the local community, and into something global. She had a responsibility now, not just to herself, but to every woman who had ever believed in her. She looked out the window at the city skyline, her mind racing with possibilities. What could she achieve with this new support? What kind of impact could she make on a larger scale? The future felt limitless, and Jasmine knew that the road ahead wouldn't be easy. There would be challenges, setbacks, and moments of doubt. But she was no longer afraid. She had come too far to let fear hold her back. Later that evening, as she tucked Amara into bed, Jasmine whispered, "We're going to do this, baby. We're going to change the world." Amara smiled up at her, her eyes wide with wonder. "I know, Mom. You're already doing it." Jasmine kissed her daughter's forehead, feeling more certain than ever that she was on the right path. The road ahead was unclear, but she wasn't afraid anymore. She had a purpose, a vision, and a community of women by her side. Together, they were unstoppable. As the collaboration with Elon Musk's team began to gain momentum, Jasmine's life quickly grew more hectic. The meetings, the planning, the execution, everything seemed to demand her attention. While she felt immense gratitude for the opportunity, she also realized how much responsibility came with it. Her once small, intimate blog was now a business with global potential, and every decision she made seemed to ripple out into a world of new possibilities and new pressures. Her phone rang, and she glanced at the screen. It was Elon's team. "Jasmine, we've got a call in 15 minutes to discuss the next steps," said a voice on the other end. "We need to finalize the partnership details with some major companies and get things moving quickly. Can you be ready to speak to that?" Jasmine took a deep breath, steadying herself. "Yes, absolutely. I'll be ready." She hung up and placed her phone down, feeling the weight of the conversation settling in her chest. The words "major companies" echoed in her mind. She had never imagined her platform would evolve into something that could work with large corporations, but now she was on the cusp of that reality. It wasn't just about sharing stories anymore. It was about managing partnerships, budgets, and navigating complex corporate negotiations. Her mind raced as she quickly pulled together the talking points for the call. As much as she wanted to stay true to her mission, she also understood the need for these partnerships to grow her platform and amplify her message. This was the crossroad she had always known would come, the point where she would have to make tough choices between staying small and personal or going big to make a broader impact. But that decision was one Jasmine didn't take lightly. "Amara, honey, I need you to get ready for school, okay? I have to take a call," Jasmine called out to her daughter as she walked through the hallway toward her room. "Okay, Mom." Amara's voice came from behind the door. "Good luck." Jasmine smiled, feeling a swell of love for her daughter. Her motivation, her heart, it was all tied to this little girl. Amara was the reason Jasmine had begun this journey. Now, Jasmine had the chance to create something that would provide for her, not just financially, but with a legacy of courage, strength, and possibility. The call began, and Jasmine found herself navigating a world that was rapidly expanding. She spoke with clarity and passion, outlining her vision for the future of her platform, making sure that each deal they discussed aligned with her core values. Every question from the corporate representatives felt like a challenge. Was she willing to compromise on certain ideals in exchange for bigger profits? Could she remain authentic in the face of pressure? The call lasted nearly an hour, and by the time it ended, Jasmine was exhausted. But there was no time to rest. There were other calls, deadlines to meet, and emails to send. She looked at the clock, only a few hours before she needed to pick Amara up from school. It was a constant balancing act, and for the first time, Jasmine felt like she was struggling to keep it all together. As the day went on, Jasmine found herself becoming more distracted. Her thoughts kept drifting back to the pressure she was under. The constant need to prove herself, the expectations to perform at a high level, and the ever-present question of whether she was doing enough. She'd always been driven, but now it felt different. It felt like she was playing a game with stakes that kept getting higher. That evening, as she and Amara sat down to dinner, Jasmine couldn't shake the feeling of being overwhelmed. Amara, ever perceptive, noticed the change in her mother's demeanor. "Mom, are you okay? You look like you're thinking really hard," Amara said, poking at her vegetables. Jasmine smiled faintly and brushed a strand of hair from Amara's face. "I'm just a little tired, sweetie. Lots of work to do, but I'll be fine." "You always say that, Mom. You're always fine, but you don't have to do everything on your own." Amara's eyes were filled with concern, and it made Jasmine's heart ache. "You're right," Jasmine said softly, "but sometimes I feel like I have to." Amara reached across the table, taking her mother's hand. "You don't. You have me, remember? And you have all the women who believe in you. You're not alone." Jasmine squeezed her daughter's hand, her throat tightening. She was right. She wasn't alone. She had a team, a community, and she had come this far because of the support from everyone who believed in her. It was okay to lean on them when she needed to. The following days were a blur of meetings, strategy sessions, and calls with Elon's team. Jasmine couldn't ignore the mounting pressure to keep everything moving forward. But as the momentum grew, so did the cracks in her confidence. Her once clear path now seemed filled with fog. Doubts crept in, and the weight of success began to feel more like a burden than a blessing. One afternoon, Jasmine took a break and stepped outside for a walk. The air was crisp, and the city was bustling around her, but she felt disconnected. The world around her felt out of reach, and her own purpose seemed blurry. Was she really making the impact she had dreamed of? Or had she lost herself in the pursuit of success? She stopped at a park bench and sat down, pulling out her phone to read some of the comments and messages from her followers. The words were overwhelmingly supportive, as always, but it was one message in particular that caught her eye. "Jasmine, I've been following your journey for a while now. I just wanted to let you know that you inspire me every day. Your courage, your story, it gives me hope. Don't forget to take care of yourself too. You can't pour from an empty cup." Jasmine blinked back tears as she read the message. It was a reminder, a gentle nudge from the universe, that she needed to take a step back and recharge. She couldn't keep giving to others without first giving to herself. The weight of her mission, her platform, it was important, but so was her well-being. She closed her eyes and took a deep breath, grounding herself in the present moment. She had come this far, but the journey was long, and she couldn't carry it alone. She needed to remember her own humanity, her own limits. That evening, Jasmine made a decision. She would take some time to step back. It was okay to pause, to reflect, to breathe. Her platform didn't need to grow faster. It needed to grow in a way that stayed true to her vision. As she sat down to dinner with Amara later that night, she smiled, feeling a newfound sense of peace. There was a long road ahead, but she was no longer in a race. She was going to take it one step at a time, with intention, with care. "Thanks for being there for me, sweetie," Jasmine said, squeezing Amara's hand across the table. Amara smiled, her eyes bright with love. "Always, Mom, always." The days following Jasmine's decision to slow down were both freeing and unsettling. On one hand, she felt a sense of relief in finally allowing herself to pause and breathe. On the other hand, there was a constant nagging feeling that the clock was ticking and the world was moving faster than she was ready for. Her collaboration with Elon Musk's team had opened so many doors, and with each passing day, she felt the pressure to seize those opportunities before they slipped away. But instead of diving headfirst into every new deal or project that came her way, Jasmine took a step back. She spent more time reflecting on what truly mattered to her and her mission. She revisited the messages from her followers, stories of women who had found inspiration in her words, women who had overcome incredible obstacles just to get by. The connection she had with her community was more powerful than any business deal or partnership could ever be. She realized she needed to be grounded in that connection, the heart of her platform. As the days went on, Jasmine began to channel her energy into creating more meaningful content, focusing on what she could offer her audience beyond the business aspect. She wanted to build something sustainable, something that would endure, not just for herself, but for everyone who believed in the mission. Then one afternoon, just as she was wrapping up a new article for her blog, Jasmine received a call that would change everything. It was from one of the most unexpected sources, an executive at one of the largest nonprofit organizations in the world, a group dedicated to empowering women globally. "Jasmine, I've been following your work for a while now, and I have to say, we are incredibly impressed by what you've built," the voice on the other end of the phone said. "Your platform has sparked something real, and we want to partner with you. We believe that your mission aligns perfectly with ours, and we see a real opportunity to create something extraordinary together." Jasmine's heart raced as she absorbed the words. A partnership with a global nonprofit? It felt like a dream. She had always hoped that her platform would have an impact beyond just social media, but this was something much bigger. This wasn't just about business. It was about creating real, tangible change. The executive continued, "We want to take your platform's message to a broader audience. We have the resources, and you have the voice. Together, we can change the lives of millions of women across the globe." Jasmine's mind raced, the possibilities unfolding before her. This was the moment she had been waiting for. She had the chance to truly make a difference, to take her vision and amplify it on a scale she had only dreamed of. But with that realization came a flood of questions. Was she ready for this? Could she balance this new partnership with the growth of her platform, the community she had so carefully nurtured? There were risks, of course, but Jasmine knew one thing for sure. This was an opportunity she couldn't pass up. After a long conversation with the executive, Jasmine agreed to move forward with the partnership. They would begin by co-hosting a global women's empowerment summit, an event that would bring together influential leaders, activists, and entrepreneurs from around the world to discuss the issues facing women today and explore ways to drive real change. As soon as the call ended, Jasmine sat back in her chair, feeling a wave of excitement wash over her. She had stepped back to reassess her priorities, to slow down and reconnect with her purpose, and now, she was about to embark on the biggest adventure of her life. It was a leap of faith, but it was the right one. That evening, as she sat with Amara at the kitchen table, Jasmine couldn't hold back the excitement. "Sweetie, you won't believe what happened today," she said, her voice filled with anticipation. Amara looked up from her homework. "What, Mom?" "I just got off the phone with one of the biggest nonprofits in the world. They want to partner with us. They want to take our message global, help millions of women, and create a summit together," Jasmine said, her heart swelling with pride. Amara's eyes widened. "That's amazing, Mom. I knew you were going to do something big." Jasmine laughed, shaking her head. "I never imagined something like this would happen, but here we are. I'm not sure what this means for the future, but I know it's something worth doing. You've always been about helping people, Mom." "This is just the beginning," Amara said with a knowing smile. Jasmine smiled back, her heart full. She had made the right decision to slow down, to listen to herself, and to trust that everything would fall into place. This partnership, this summit, it was all a reflection of the love and dedication she had poured into her platform. The following weeks were a whirlwind of planning, meetings, and preparations for the summit. Jasmine worked closely with the nonprofits team, shaping the event and ensuring that it would have a meaningful impact. She also reached out to key members of her community, women who had been with her from the very beginning, and invited them to join her in this incredible opportunity. She wanted them to be a part of this new chapter, to help her share their stories and experiences with the world. As the date for the summit drew closer, Jasmine felt both excitement and anxiety. She had worked so hard to get to this point, but now, standing on the precipice of something so much bigger, the weight of the responsibility was undeniable. She wasn't just speaking for herself anymore. She was speaking for millions of women whose voices had been silenced for too long. But despite the pressure, Jasmine knew this was her calling. She had always believed in the power of women supporting women, and now she had the chance to prove that belief on a global stage. The night before the summit, Jasmine sat alone in her office, reflecting on the journey that had brought her here. It felt surreal. She had started this blog with nothing but a dream, a message of empowerment, and a hope that she could make a difference. And now, she was on the verge of changing the world. She looked out the window at the night sky, feeling a deep sense of gratitude. No matter what happened, she had stayed true to herself. She had remained grounded in her mission, and now, the world was ready to listen. The next day, Jasmine stood on stage at the summit, the bright lights shining down on her. Her heart was pounding, but as she looked out into the crowd of women from all corners of the globe, she felt an overwhelming sense of peace. This was it. This was what she had worked for. "Together, we rise," she said, her voice steady and clear, as the crowd erupted in applause. And in that moment, Jasmine knew that her journey had only just begun. The summit was nothing short of a revelation. Women from across the globe, activists, entrepreneurs, teachers, mothers, had gathered to share their stories, their struggles, and their victories. The energy in the air was palpable. Jasmine stood on the stage, taking it all in, feeling a sense of deep connection to everyone there. This wasn't just an event, it was a movement she had dreamed about and worked tirelessly to bring to life. The sessions were inspiring, filled with discussions about gender equality, access to education, women's health, and economic empowerment. Jasmine had always believed in the power of stories to unite people, and here, it was happening in real time. Every story shared was a thread in the larger tapestry of change, and as she listened, Jasmine realized that her work was far from over. It was just beginning. During a breakout session on leadership, Jasmine was invited to share her journey with a smaller group. As she spoke, she could feel the weight of her words, and she saw the impact they had on the women in the room. They were nodding along, some wiping away tears, others exchanging knowing glances. "I started this platform because I wanted to empower women," Jasmine said, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "But I realized along the way that we have to do more than just talk about empowerment. We need to take action. And that's what we're doing here today. We're building something that will change lives. And that change doesn't come overnight, but every single day we make a difference." A woman in the front row stood up. "Your story has inspired me to start my own nonprofit for girls in my community. I've always wanted to do it, but I didn't know where to begin. Now, I feel like I have the courage to start." Jasmine smiled, her heart swelling with pride. This was the ripple effect she had always hoped for. It wasn't just about her journey anymore. It was about inspiring others to take action, to create their own change. That evening, after the summit had concluded for the day, Jasmine found herself sitting in a quiet corner of the venue, reflecting on everything that had happened. Her mind raced with ideas, with possibilities, but it was the quiet sense of fulfillment that filled her the most. She had helped bring women together from all walks of life, and they had shared something incredibly powerful, a sense of purpose, of community, and of hope. But it wasn't just the summit that was having an impact. Jasmine began to see the changes in her own platform as well. The blog's engagement skyrocketed. Her social media followers were more engaged than ever, sharing their own stories and finding ways to connect with each other. She had become not just a voice, but a catalyst for something much larger. Elon's team had been following the summit closely, and within days, Jasmine received another email. It was from one of the senior executives, and the tone was unmistakably excited. "Jasmine, we've seen the incredible response to the summit, and we believe we can take this even further. We want to launch a global campaign to help more women start their own businesses, build leadership skills, and have access to the tools they need to succeed. We'd love for you to be at the forefront of this initiative. Together, we can create a real shift in how women's voices are heard in the global economy." Jasmine's hands trembled as she read the message. A global campaign? She had never imagined that this, what had started as a small blog, would turn into something so transformative. The enormity of it was humbling, but she also felt the weight of the responsibility. This was no longer just about her or her vision. It was about millions of women who needed to be given the tools, the confidence, and the platform to succeed. She called Amara into her office. "Sweetie, you won't believe this," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "What happened, Mom?" Amara asked, her curiosity piqued. "They want to create a global campaign to help women start their own businesses and grow their leadership. And they want me to lead it. Can you believe that?" Amara's eyes widened. "That's amazing, Mom. You always say you're going to change the world, and now you're actually doing it." Jasmine smiled at her daughter, feeling a deep sense of gratitude. This journey had brought her so much, but nothing compared to seeing her daughter's pride in her. The next few weeks were filled with planning and brainstorming. Jasmine worked closely with Elon's team, as well as a network of women entrepreneurs, to develop a campaign that would equip women worldwide with the resources they needed to succeed. The campaign would include everything from online business courses to mentorship programs, access to funding, and networking opportunities. As Jasmine became more immersed in the campaign, she realized just how much the world had shifted. Women were no longer content to sit on the sidelines. They were stepping up, taking leadership roles, and demanding a seat at the table. And Jasmine, in her own way, had become a part of that larger movement. One evening, as she sat down at her desk, her phone buzzed. It was a message from one of her longtime followers. "I just wanted to let you know how much you've inspired me. A year ago, I felt completely lost. But after reading your blog and watching how you built your platform, I finally decided to take the leap and start my own business. Today, I'm officially launching it. I just wanted to say thank you for showing me that it's possible." Jasmine read the message over and over again, her heart swelling with emotion. This was why she did it. This was why she worked late into the night, why she pushed through the doubts, why she poured her soul into every article and post. Because of moments like this, because of the real, tangible change that her platform was inspiring in the world. The ripple effect was growing, and Jasmine realized that her mission had evolved in ways she had never expected. She was no longer just a voice for empowerment. She was helping to create a movement of women who were no longer waiting for permission to succeed, but who were taking control of their futures. As the campaign launched and the response flooded in, Jasmine stood in awe of the incredible impact they were having. It wasn't just her work anymore. It was the collective effort of thousands of women, all working together to lift each other up. And as Jasmine looked back at everything she had built, her blog, her platform, the summit, the campaign, she knew that this was just the beginning. There were still so many stories to tell, so many women to empower, and so much more change to create. She smiled to herself, knowing that no matter what challenges lay ahead, she was ready. Because she had found her true purpose, not just in success, but in the impact she was making on the world. Despite the overwhelming success of the campaign and the global momentum Jasmine had built, there were moments of quiet doubt that crept into her mind. Success, as it turned out, came with its own set of challenges. While she had always believed in the power of women supporting one another, she began to wonder if her own vision was as clear as it had been when she started this journey. The emails and messages of gratitude poured in daily, people expressing how much her work had impacted their lives. Yet, with each message, there was also an increasing pressure to keep up with the expectations. The platform was growing faster than she could manage, and the weight of her newfound responsibilities was becoming heavier. She had created something beautiful, something that truly mattered. But was she still the same woman who had started this dream? Was her soul still connected to the mission? Or was she now caught in a whirlwind of corporate partnerships, business decisions, and the ever-growing need to be more? Jasmine sat at her desk one late evening, surrounded by papers, emails, and to-do lists. Her head ached, and the weight of exhaustion pressed on her shoulders. She had just wrapped up a call with Elon's team, discussing the expansion of their project, and although the conversation had been productive, Jasmine felt more drained than fulfilled. She stared at her phone, watching the notifications pile up. Messages from her community, from business partners, from her followers. The expectations felt suffocating. There was so much to keep track of, so many people depending on her to get it all right. Was it all too much? Was she losing touch with why she started this in the first place? A knock on the door broke her thoughts. Amara stepped into the room, her eyes filled with concern. "Mom, are you okay? You've been working really late lately." Jasmine forced a smile and set her phone down. "Yeah, just a lot to do. You know how it is." Amara walked over and perched on the edge of the desk. "I know it's a lot, Mom, but don't forget to take care of yourself too. You can't help everyone if you're not okay." Jasmine's heart clenched at the wisdom in her daughter's words. "I know, sweetie. I don't know if I can keep up. There's so much happening, and it feels like everything depends on me." Amara took Jasmine's hand and squeezed it gently. "It's okay to take a break. You've done so much already. Maybe it's time to let others help too. You don't have to do everything on your own." Jasmine's eyes filled with tears. How had it come to this? She had always believed in the importance of community, of women lifting each other up. But now, it seemed like she was the one who needed to be lifted. It was humbling, but it also made her realize that the journey she had started was never meant to be walked alone. Amara's words were a wake-up call. Jasmine had spent so much time focused on the bigger picture, on the success of the campaign, on fulfilling the promises she had made to her followers, that she had lost sight of something important, her own well-being. "I guess I've been so busy trying to help everyone else that I forgot to ask for help when I needed it," Jasmine said, her voice trembling. Amara nodded, offering a comforting smile. "You don't have to do it all, Mom. You've taught me that it's okay to lean on others." Jasmine pulled her daughter into a hug, grateful for her wisdom. "Thank you, baby. You're right. I need to take care of myself too. I can't give my best if I'm running on empty." Over the next few days, Jasmine took a step back, just as she had promised Amara. She canceled a few meetings and delegated some of her responsibilities to her trusted team. She began to focus on the simple joys that had once grounded her, taking long walks, reading for pleasure, and spending more time with Amara. In those moments of quiet, Jasmine found clarity. She realized that the work she had done was important, but it wasn't everything. The mission would continue, but she needed to nurture herself in order to continue serving others. This wasn't a race, it was a marathon, and in order to run it, she needed balance. As she eased back into the flow of work, Jasmine began to reimagine what her platform could look like moving forward. She didn't have to do it all on her own. She could lean on her community, her team, and the women she had worked so hard to uplift. The platform was built on the foundation of connection, and it was time for her to embrace that connection in her own life as well. One evening, she sat down at her desk, a notebook in hand, and wrote a letter to herself. "Dear Jasmine, it's okay to feel lost sometimes. It's okay to need a break. You've done incredible things, but remember that you're human. You've created something beautiful, but your journey doesn't have to be a constant race. It's okay to slow down, to rest, and to ask for help. You don't have to carry the world on your shoulders. You've built a community, and that community is here for you. Take your time. Your impact will last beyond the pressure of today. With love, yourself." Jasmine folded the letter and tucked it into her journal, a small act of self-compassion that would remind her to honor her limits. She wasn't just a creator, a leader, a force of change. She was a woman, a mother, a person who needed care just like everyone else. The next morning, as she met with her team, she felt a renewed sense of purpose. She shared her thoughts with them, explaining how she had been feeling and why it was important for her to take some time to focus on her own well-being. Her team, as always, was incredibly supportive, and they assured her that they were all in this together. Jasmine knew that she had a strong foundation, both personally and professionally, and that she didn't have to carry the weight of the world on her own. As she continued to grow her platform and expand her impact, Jasmine did so with a renewed sense of balance. She understood now that her work was never meant to be a solo endeavor. It was about building a community, one where every woman, including herself, could take a breath, lean on others, and keep moving forward together. As Jasmine sat in her favorite armchair by the window, the early morning sunlight streamed through, casting a warm glow over the room. The past few months had been a whirlwind, but they had also been a time of profound transformation for her. She had learned the hard way that balance was essential, not just for her work, but for her heart, mind, and spirit. Her commitment to empowering women had never wavered, but now she understood something crucial. To make a real impact, she had to be at her best. It wasn't enough to work tirelessly and burn herself out. She needed to nurture her own well-being to continue leading with authenticity and love. The global campaign had been a massive success. Women around the world were taking part in entrepreneurship workshops, mentorship programs, and leadership training sessions. The feedback had been overwhelmingly positive, and Jasmine could see the tangible results of her efforts. Women were starting businesses, creating networks, and becoming leaders in their communities. It was exactly what she had envisioned when she first began this journey. But now, Jasmine knew there was more she could do, more she could give. A message popped up on her phone from Elon Musk's team. It was a simple note, but it carried significant weight. Jasmine, we've been discussing the next phase of our global initiative, and we'd like to take things to the next level. We believe it's time to build a dedicated platform for women entrepreneurs, providing them with everything they need to thrive. We want you to be the guiding force behind it. Let's build something that lasts. Jasmine's heart raced as she read the message. It was everything she had ever dreamed of, an entire platform dedicated to empowering women, not just through words but through action. This was the next step, the next horizon. The opportunity was vast, and for the first time in a while, Jasmine felt a spark of excitement deep inside her. She could do this. She could build something monumental, something that would change the lives of women everywhere. She took a deep breath and typed out her response. I'm in. Let's create something that will last beyond us, something that will continue to impact women for generations to come. As she hit send, Jasmine felt the weight of the decision, but it wasn't a burden. It was a call to action, a challenge she was ready to meet. This was what she had worked for, what she had envisioned all along. Now, she had the chance to turn that vision into something even greater. The next few months were a blur of meetings, planning, and late nights of brainstorming with her team. They were building something from the ground up, a platform that would provide not just business tools and education, but a community of women who could support and inspire one another. Jasmine wanted to create an ecosystem where women could learn from each other, find mentorship, and access the resources they needed to succeed. But as the project began to take shape, Jasmine faced yet another challenge, one she hadn't anticipated. The pressures of leading such a large-scale initiative began to take a toll again. There were so many moving parts, so many decisions to be made. And with the continued growth of her social media following and her personal brand, it felt like she was being pulled in every direction. She started to feel that old familiar weight creeping in, the pressure to be everywhere, do everything, and never fail. One evening, after a particularly long day of conference calls, Jasmine sat down with Amara. The exhaustion was palpable, and Jasmine felt like she was running on fumes. You look tired, Mom, Amara said, noticing her mother's weary expression. Is everything okay? Jasmine sighed and leaned back in her chair. I'm just overwhelmed, sweetie. There's so much going on, and I'm trying to make everything work. I want to give this project everything I have, but I'm worried that I'm losing sight of why I started this in the first place. Amara crossed the room and sat next to her mother. I think you're doing amazing, Mom, but it's okay to ask for help. You've built something incredible, but it doesn't mean you have to carry it all by yourself. You don't have to be everything to everyone. Jasmine smiled at her daughter's wisdom. I know, Amara. It's just hard sometimes, you know? I want to make sure that everything I do has an impact. But I can't forget that I'm human too. Amara put her hand on her mother's. You've already made such a huge impact. Maybe it's time to take a step back and trust that the people around you, your team, your community, are just as invested in this as you are. You don't have to do it all. Jasmine let her daughter's words sink in. She realized that Amara was right. She had created a movement, a community, and a platform that had the potential to last for generations. But it wasn't just her work. It was the work of everyone involved. She had built a network of incredible people who were just as passionate about the mission as she was. It was time to trust them, to lean on them. Jasmine didn't have to carry everything on her shoulders alone. The following week, Jasmine took a step back. She delegated more of her responsibilities to her team and allowed herself the space to breathe. She still worked hard. She always would. But now, she made sure to take time for herself, for her family, and for the things that brought her joy. And with that, something remarkable happened. The project grew stronger, more vibrant, and more effective than ever. As Jasmine allowed her team to take the reins on certain aspects, she found that the initiative was flourishing without her constant oversight. She was still involved, still guiding the vision, but she wasn't drowning in the details. And it felt liberating. Soon, the platform launched, a dedicated space for women entrepreneurs that offered resources, education, mentorship, and, most importantly, community. The response was overwhelming. Thousands of women signed up within the first few days, eager to take part in a movement that was truly dedicated to their success. Jasmine couldn't help but smile as she watched the platform grow. This was what she had worked for. This was what she had built. And now, it was changing lives. One afternoon, as she sat in her office, reviewing feedback from the platform's users, a familiar email notification appeared in her inbox. It was from Elon's team, but this time, the message had a different tone. Jasmine, we wanted to take a moment to thank you. You've built something truly special. This platform will continue to change the world for women everywhere. We're honored to have worked with you on this. Jasmine's eyes welled up as she read the email. She had worked tirelessly to get to this point, and now, her work was making a global impact. She had built something that would last beyond her lifetime, something that would continue to empower women for generations to come. In that moment, Jasmine realized that the journey had come full circle. She had started with a single idea, a desire to help women, and now she had created something that was changing the world. The ripple effect of her work would continue for years, inspiring countless women to rise, to lead, and to build the futures they deserved. And Jasmine knew, without a doubt, that this was only the beginning. Jasmine stood before the crowd, the soft hum of anticipation filling the air. This was the moment, the culmination of years of hard work, sacrifice, and growth. The platform she had built for women entrepreneurs had transformed from a dream into a living, breathing entity. Women from every corner of the globe had joined, learned, and thrived through the resources, mentorship, and support they found there. It had become more than just a platform. It was a movement. And it was only the beginning. The auditorium was filled with hundreds of women, leaders, innovators, creators, and dreamers. The launch event for the new phase of the global campaign was about to begin, and Jasmine could feel the weight of the moment, but it was a weight she carried with pride. Her heart swelled as she looked out into the crowd, seeing so many faces that represented the change she had been working towards. Elon Musk was seated in the front row, alongside other key partners, but Jasmine's eyes weren't focused on them. Her gaze swept over the sea of women who had found their place in this new world. Women who were now empowered with the tools to build their own businesses, make decisions, and create impact. Jasmine was no longer just a voice. She was a facilitator of change. The stage was set for her to speak, and as she walked up to the podium, she took a deep breath. Her mind flashed back to the early days, when it all felt like an impossible dream. She thought about the challenges, the doubts, the obstacles that had seemed insurmountable. But now, standing here, she knew that every setback had led her to this moment. She smiled, her heart full. When I started this journey, I never imagined that it would grow into what it is today, she began, her voice steady but full of emotion. I thought I was just a woman with a dream, trying to make a difference. But what I quickly learned was that I wasn't alone. This movement, this platform, was built on the belief that women can change the world. And together, we have proven that to be true. The crowd erupted in applause, and Jasmine took a moment to absorb the energy. She continued, "But this isn't just about me. It's about every woman here, and every woman who's ever had the courage to step into her power. It's about all of us working together, lifting each other up, and building a future where women can thrive." Her eyes scanned the crowd again, but this time, they rested on one face in particular. Amara, standing at the back with a proud smile on her face, her mother's legacy already beginning to inspire the next generation. Jasmine's heart ached with pride. Amara had grown up with this vision. She had been there every step of the way, supporting her mother, offering wisdom and love, and now she was a part of this movement too. This platform is not just a space for women to learn. It's a space for us to connect, to support one another, and to share our stories. It's a space for us to take our place in the world as leaders, as entrepreneurs, and as changemakers. But most importantly, it's a space where we remind each other that we are not alone. Jasmine paused, allowing her words to sink in. The room was silent now, each person reflecting on the impact that was being made. This wasn't just about business or success. It was about creating a world where women had the power to shape their destinies, and Jasmine had helped lay the foundation for that world. Together, we have proven that when we invest in each other, when we build each other up, the possibilities are limitless. And I want to leave you with this thought. The world has always needed women to lead. And now, it's our time. Another round of applause echoed through the auditorium. Jasmine felt a rush of emotion, but she didn't let it overwhelm her. She was proud, but she also knew that this was just one chapter in the larger story. She had started something that would continue to grow and evolve, and she felt a deep sense of fulfillment knowing that the work would carry on. After the speech, Jasmine joined Elon and the other partners backstage. There was excitement in the air, but she found herself still reflecting on what she had said, on what the movement had become. Elon approached her with a smile. "Jasmine, that was incredible. You've really created something special here. Your impact is immeasurable." Jasmine smiled, but there was a humility in her eyes. "I couldn't have done it without everyone. This platform, this movement, it's not just mine. It's all of ours." As the event wrapped up, Jasmine found herself on stage once more, this time surrounded by women who had come up to thank her personally. They shared stories of how the platform had changed their lives, how they had been able to start businesses, create jobs, and build communities of their own. Each story was a testament to the power of what she had built. As the evening wore on and the crowd slowly dispersed, Jasmine took a moment to reflect on the journey. The long hours, the sacrifices, the doubts. It had all been worth it. She had built something that would continue to create waves of change for years to come. But beyond the accolades, beyond the platform, beyond the success, Jasmine realized that her true legacy wasn't in the numbers or the campaigns. It was in the lives she had touched, the women who had found their voice, the young girls who would grow up believing they could lead, and the global community that had been formed in the name of empowerment. Jasmine glanced over at Amara once more. Her daughter was the future, the next generation of leaders, and Jasmine had no doubt that the ripple effect of this movement would continue for as long as there were women who believed in their own power. As she walked off the stage, she felt at peace. She had done the work she set out to do. But most importantly, she had helped create a world where women could rise, together, and claim their rightful place at the table. And that, Jasmine knew, was just the beginning. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough?